After 2 injury-riddled seasons with the Brooklyn Nets, Jeremy Lin bounced back in the first half of this season as an Atlanta Hawk and impressed enough teams with his play to warrant being picked up by the Toronto Raptors after his buyout. It's interesting to note that Jeremy has suited up for more games in his partial season with the Hawks than both seasons combined with the Brooklyn Nets. In this video, I'll be breaking down Toronto's current roster composition and how Jeremy might fit in on the court. The Toronto Raptors are currently second in the Eastern Conference, led by head coach Nick Nurse. Most casual NBA fans might only be familiar with all-star players Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry. However, Toronto has made a noticeable shift in scoring distribution this season. Last year, DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry were head and shoulders above the other Raptors in points per game, but this season, Lowry's scoring has taken a backseat to Serge Ibaka and the young yet noticeably improved Pascal Siakam. The most impactful player for the Raptors without a doubt has been Kawhi Leonard, probably the only Raptor with a consistent green light to isolate at his own discretion. Kawhi's usage has skyrocketed this season, and as a result, he has been averaging a career high of 27 points, 7.7 free throws, and 7.7 rebounds per game. Much of the Toronto offense is engineered towards getting Kawhi the ball on the block or the short corner of the court, where he is near automatic, imposing his offensive will with a flurry of spin moves, back downs, fadeaways, and hook shots. While Kawhi Leonard is averaging a career high in both field goal attempts and points per game on above average efficiency, Kyle Lowry is actually having somewhat of a down year shooting the ball compared to prior seasons. However, Lowry does contribute greatly to Toronto's offensive and defensive efficiency ratings, as he is averaging a career high 9.1 assists per game this season, with the majority of his assists going to Serge Ibaka and Pascal Siakam. Also, similar to Jeremy Lin, Kyle Lowry is fearless when it comes to taking charges on defense. Kyle Lowry has drawn 37 offensive fouls this season compared to Jeremy's 32. However, when accounting for the fewer minutes Jeremy spends on the court, Lin still takes charges at a slightly higher rate than Lowry. With his improved ball handling and finishing ability this season, Pascal Siakam is starting to look like a younger Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Raptors are providing Siakam with ample opportunities to attack the basket. As shown by Raptors Playbook channel, Siakam is often used in the 4-1 pick and roll action between himself and Lowry. As the point guard, Kyle will be the one to set a pick for Pascal in an attempt to cause a mismatch with the opposing point guard trying to contain Siakam. Given that Siakam is taller, stronger, and most of the time just as quick as the opposing point guards, he utilizes his ball handling and post-up ability to get enough penetration into the paint to score on easy jumpers and hook shots above the defense. Feel free to check out the Raptors Playbook channel for more plays ran by Toronto. I've included a link in the description below. The integration of Pascal Siakam into the Toronto offense has given them 3 main playmakers in the starting lineup. Complementary players such as Danny Green and Serge Ibaka have been the primary beneficiaries as defenses shift to provide coverage on Siakam, Leonard, and Lowry. Off the bench, Fred Vanvleet is the primary distributor and is second only to Lowry in assists at 4.6 per game. Similar to Siakam, Fred is also having a noticeably improved season, averaging career highs 10.5 points per game while shooting an effective field goal percentage of 49.5%. Although Vanvleet mostly comes off the bench, most of his assists are actually to starters Ibaka and Siakam. With the introduction of Marc Gasol into the Raptor lineup, it will certainly be interesting to see how that affects Vanvleet's role going forward. One more thing to point out is that on a per 36 minutes basis, Jeremy actually outperforms Vanvleet on points, assists, steals, and free throws. However, Vanvleet does take much better care of the ball, averaging way fewer turnovers, and shoots the three ball at a much higher percentage. In a vacuum, this would imply that Jeremy should play the traditional point guard role on the second unit, directing plays and running pick and rolls, while Vanvleet should provide spacing and secondary penetration off Jeremy's initial drives. If we assume Jeremy will play the off guard for Toronto's bench unit, then to predict Lin's role on the Raptors, it's probably most useful to look at fourth-year guard DeLon Wright's old role before he was traded to Memphis. As the stats from NBA.com's player tracking exhibits show, Wright handled multiple roles off the bench as the off guard, with the majority of his three-point shot attempts coming from catch-and-shoot opportunities, while the majority of his two-point attempts were within 10 feet after 3 to 6 dribbles or even 7+ dribbles. This implies much of Wright's attempts came off pick and rolls or isolations off a mismatch opportunity. While Jeremy isn't one of the top three-point shooters in the league, he's enough of a threat that you don't want to leave him wide open in the corner, and we all know how deadly Jeremy can be off the pick and roll. Personally, I think Jeremy might be most comfortable playing the pure point guard spot off the bench, but he'd have no problem filling in as the shooting guard as well. Some final thoughts to leave you with. Toronto is the number 1 team in the NBA when it comes to field goal percentage off shots within 3 to 6 feet from the hoop. This is right around the area Jeremy has been feasting from this season, with a variety of floaters and soft jumpers as a Hawk. We saw footage earlier of how the Raptors like to get Siakam attacking the basket around this area, as well as DeLon Wright shooting most of his two-pointers from this area. Jeremy's pick and roll game will naturally mesh well if the offense is predicated around attacking this area of the paint. It is still unknown if the newly traded for Marc Gasol will be a startup or backup for Toronto. Gasol is not only a willing passer from the post, but also a good finisher in the paint. Historically, Jeremy has worked well with bigs who can set solid screens and catch tight passes while finishing inside the paint. Siakam and Ibaka will also provide Lin with plenty of lob opportunities off the pick and roll game. Regardless of the specific role Jeremy will assume as a Raptor, it's safe to say he's landed in a much more competitive situation after his buyout with the Hawks. The Raptors will need Jeremy to bring his A game to finish off this season as a highly seeded playoff team in the East and help preserve the health of their starting guards. I'd like to take a second to thank my Patreons who have continued to support my Jeremy Lin videos. If you've enjoyed my breakdowns or highlight videos, please consider also supporting my work. The majority of my content on the Patreon blog does not require any type of financial contribution to access, so please check that out in the description below.